everybody, and welcome to our week number 7 Twitch live stream. I can't believe we are in week number 7. Next week is Thanksgiving. Pretty crazy. I hope everyone is doing well. I see a bunch of you in the chat. Hopefully you can hear and see me okay. Is everything coming through all right? If someone could give me a yes or a thumbs up or something like that, that would be amazing. Just so I know. Wait just a minute. Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so we are in week 7 and 8, the last 2 weeks of our class, right? So we're right here in week 7, and then we have week 8. Kind of have like a little bit of a longer week 7 and 8 because next week is Thanksgiving, and so I think there was a few extra days in there to account for that. But I want to go over what we have going on for this week and then kind of talk about things moving forward. But the rest of the class is now available to you since week 7 and 8 is where we are at. And so everything will be done by Friday, December 6th. That is the end of our class. And I'll mention that lots of times just because it is a Friday, which is a little different than normal. But let's take a look at what we have going on this week and then kind of look a little bit ahead as well. So as I mentioned, week 7 and 8 are now open for you. And this week in week 7, we're looking at chapters 13 and 14. So stress and health and psychological disorders. And disorders, I think, are what most people think of when they think of psychology. Stress and health definitely being very connected to that. So as always, you'll want to do 3 things for each chapter. Read the chapter in the ebook, read through the lecture, and watch the lecture video. So make sure to do all 3 things for chapters 13 and 14. You also have 2 discussions this week, and then of course I'll give you an extra credit question today. So let's take a look at the 2 discussions that we have for this week, one related to stress and one related to disorders. And as always, and hopefully something you've gotten really accustomed to at this point, you have my instructions up here at the top, followed by a video. And this one, I decided to do something a little bit different and kind of promote a little bit of self-care as part of this discussion. So one of the important concepts of your mental health is the idea of self-care, caring for yourself, right? And this can be things that are little, it can be things that are big. It doesn't have to be anything elaborate, though it definitely could be. So what you're going to do for this discussion is you're going to read this little article here about self-care. And so if we click on that, it'll bring it up for you. And I did record it if you would rather listen to me read it to you, but it's going to talk about what is self-care and why is it so important for your health. It also gives you some tips of like different types and what counts as self-care and what doesn't, and so on. And then once you're done reading that, what you're going to do is you're going to answer number 2 and 3, and you're kind of doing this together. So you're going to engage in 5 self-care activities, and these can literally be anything that you want. It can be anything from like eating your favorite food to taking a nap to going on a walk, getting your nails done. Like it can literally be anything. And what I want you to do is take 5 pictures of you engaging in the self-care activities. You don't have to be in the picture. It can be of any part of the activity. Try and make sure your images are like kind of thoughtful and creative, that they're well composed. And then you're going to upload these images. And for each image, give me a short description of the activity, how it promotes self-care, and kind of your experience, how you felt during it and after it and so on. Just a couple of sentences. The emphasis here is on the images and the activity. So make sure these are your own pictures, that you take them yourself. Be creative and have fun with them. Again, the images can be of any part of your self-care activity. And then you're also going to write a little bit about what self-care is and why it's important. So you can see a few people have already done this. So I look forward to seeing your images and hearing the cool things that you do. My favorite self-care activity is to eat my favorite cake. Hashtag self-cake, I like to call it, instead of self-care. But that's what you'll do for this discussion. And then don't forget to also reply to a classmate to get those 2 very easy points of credit. For discussion number 14, this one relates to disorders. And again, as usual, you have my instructions at the top, followed by a video. And for this one, you're also reading this short article. And what I wanted to do with this discussion is give you a very different perspective on the idea of mental health and disorders. So the main and dominant perspective is that mental illnesses exist and that people have them, and that's very well recognized and understood. But there is kind of a polar counter argument that mental illness is a myth. And I wanted to have you be able to see the other side. So, what I have here is a little excerpt from an article from a book that was written by a man named Thomas Szasz. And this is old. This was written in the 1960s. It's been updated several times, but it is a really kind of interesting counter argument to the idea of mental illness being recognized. So you can listen to it or you can read it. It is definitely a little bit longer than the self-care one, which is pretty short. But after you've read the article, you're going to answer these 3 questions related to it. So you'll read the article up here, and then you're going to summarize Szasz's main ideas. What are some of the reasons that he presents as support for his claims of calling mental illness a myth? And then do you agree with him? And why or why not? You can have whatever opinion you have. You're just going to describe whether you think, if you agree or not. And then finally, do diagnoses stigmatize people? In what ways can diagnosing people either help them or hinder them? Right? A little bit of both, and explain. So again, I think this is really interesting. You could totally agree or totally disagree, but I think it's a really kind of valid counter argument, and I wanted to give you a chance to read it and be exposed to it. So for this week, that's kind of the main focus, reading those 2 chapters, doing those 2 discussions. I will, of course, post a recording of this later, and I'll give you that extra credit question in a moment. If you look ahead to next week, and again, next week is kind of odd because it's Thanksgiving. I think they kind of carried it over a little bit. But if you look at next week, it's chapters 15 and 16, discussions 15 and 16. You have your final exam, and then there's also a closing assignment and a little class survey. And so we won't have a live stream next week because it's the day before Thanksgiving and a lot of people are traveling, myself included. I'll be traveling. We actually leave tomorrow on a trip. So we won't have a live stream next week, but it will be the following Wednesday. And that will give us an opportunity to go over those discussions, the closing assignment and the exam and the closing survey. But if you would like to work ahead, everything is there and ready for you. But just remember that the class does end on Friday, December 6th. And so I just want that to be a date that is on your mind. So for this week, let me give you a couple of quick reminders, right? So I typed this out already. If you have the opportunity to just double check really quickly that you are still subscribed, or if you're watching this later as a recording, remember that you can still get extra credit on Canvas as long as you are subscribed. So just make sure to check that or do that. And then as I mentioned just a moment ago, and I'll put this here in the chat, there will be no live stream next week. Our final Twitch live stream will be on Wednesday, December 4th at 11:45 a.m. Okay, so just like I put in the chat, we won't have a live stream next week just because it is the day before Thanksgiving, and typically attendance is really low, and I will be in the middle of the ocean on a cruise ship. So I'll think of you, but we won't be doing a live stream. So we will have one final live stream on Wednesday, December 4th, to go over that final week. But again, if you would like to, you are more than welcome to work ahead. Let me also give you the extra credit question for this week, something that will kind of connect to the materials and the things that you're reading. So this is the week number 7 Twitch extra credit question. And the question for you is, what does DSM stand for, and what edition are we currently in? What does DSM stand for, and what edition are we currently in? And so if you go over to Canvas, if you're ready to answer that, you'll click right here on optional Twitch extra credit number 7, because we're in week 7. And then up at the top, you can click on start assignment, and that will bring up this text box where you can type your response. And when you're ready, go ahead and hit submit to get your confetti burst. And were those rocket ships? I'm not sure what they were. They went so fast, right? But you can go ahead and do that anytime this week or until the end of this 2-week section. But please do me a favor as we kind of get closer to the end of the class, now that we're in week 7 and 8, take a moment sometime this week or next week, just double check your grade, make sure that everything looks correct. If at any point, something doesn't look right, let me know. It is so much simpler to fix it while we are still actively in class. Once the class ends and I submit final grades, it's a kind of a process. So just make sure you double check everything, make sure your grade is accurate. If you're missing anything that you should have turned in or should have had a score for, make sure to let me know. Otherwise, get going on the materials for this week. Again, I won't see you next week because of the holiday, but I will see you December 4th for that very last live stream where we'll go over everything from week number 8. But as I mentioned, it is available for you if you would like to get started. So I think that is it. If you celebrate Thanksgiving, I hope you have a wonderful Thanksgiving next week. I hope you all have a nice, hopefully a couple of days off, get a little bit off Thursday and Friday for the holiday. And again, I won't see you next week, but I'll see you the week after. So make sure you put your name in the chat if you didn't already. Otherwise, thank you so much for those of you joining me. Again, kind of short and sweet, 15 minutes. But I will hang out for a little while if you have any questions for me. I am going to minimize my video so I don't stare at myself. But thank you all. Put that in the chat as well. Thank you all for being here. I hope you have a wonderful day and a wonderful week. And I will see you all next week. Thank you as well. Thank you so much. Your final exam is just exam number 4. So if you look on Canvas here and you go to week 8, which is next week, you can see that it's right here. So it's just on the ebook site, and it's just exam number 4. So you'll take it on the ebook site like you have for all the other ones. There's a study guide. It's not at all cumulative. It's just on the 4th unit. So just a 4th exam. Yeah, you're welcome. And I am still here. If any of you have any other questions, I'm more than happy to answer them. And then we will again have that one last live stream on December 4th to go over that final closing exam and the closing assignment so I can make sure you're feeling good about both.